kids, I'm breaking some rules tonight. Welcome to a new series I'm calling here at Piercing Pop Culture Late Night Contemporary Corner. This is going to be reserved for films that are a little newer. They're a little fresher. They don't necessarily fit, but they're here for one reason. I just got out of a screening. It's late, and I want to talk a little bit about them. Before I get too much deeper into this, welcome to another episode here of Piercing Pop Culture. My name is Kim, your resident fangirl for the weird, the wacky, and the things that don't get enough love from our algorithms. This is not going to be the case in this mini-sode. We're talking The Running Man. So, as long as you haven't been living under a literary or a cinematic rock for at least the last 40 or so years, this is something that's going to have popped up at some point, whether or not it's the Stephen King novel or novella, I suppose, the Arnold Schwarzenegger film. There's associations here kind of throughout. The Letterboxd synopsis for this one reads like this. Desperate to save his sick daughter, working-class Ben Richards is convinced by the Running Man's charming but ruthless producer to enter the deadly competition game as a last resort. But Ben's defiance, instincts, and grit turn him into an unexpected fan favorite and a threat to the entire system. As ratings skyrocket, so does the danger, and Ben must outwit not just the hunters, but a nation addicted to watching him fall. The cast on this one is a fun one. We've got Glen Powell as the lead, and then Josh Brolin, Michael Cera, Coleman Domingo, the always delightful Lee Pace, Jamie Lawson, William H. Macy, and Amelia Jones. Edgar Wright directs the film from a script he co-wrote with Michael Bacall. And then, as I mentioned, this is coming from an original story written by Stephen King. Now, I was excited about this coming into this one. I must admit my biases. I am free and open with that here. I adore Glen Powell with every fiber of my being. And he is our reboot king right now, going back to Twisters last summer, which, as a fangirl of the original Twisters, the Twister film in the 1990s, I thought I was going to walk in and absolutely despise. Glen Powell won me over with all his stinkingly delightful charisma. However, I think that is the primary problem I had with this film. Be warned, this is going to be potentially some nerdy criticism coming out to start. This is a point that's bugged me, but is liable to not bug most people. I don't think Glen Powell was right for this role. So he's in the main role. If your frame of reference here is the Schwarzenegger film, like myself, the Arnold Schwarzenegger part. I have not read the King story like I should have, so I will freely disclose that as well. This is not where I'm pulling from here. But throughout, I was pretty regularly pulled back from the story, especially at the beginning by Powell trying to wrap his head around this character. From the beginning of this film, we hear about Ben's anger, his frustration, his issues with authority. He's lost a number of jobs because he can't take orders. He talks back. He's a rebel. Friends, this is not Glen Powell. And maybe it's Glen Powell not fitting into a dystopian society. I'm not quite sure. But he's always been the slightly preppy finance bro next door. That this character that requires a harder edge. It requires an aggressiveness, a ferocity, a behind-the-eyes seething. I didn't find that here. And this became less of an issue for me towards the middle of the second act or so. The film lightens up a little bit, and Powell's able to open up, and it becomes more of an expected Glen Powell performance. And that worked. I thought that was when I was most at ease with this film, when I most enjoyed it. But in a lot of the moments that you see in the trailer, he's yelling, he's flipping off the camera, he's angry. All I could think was, this is not Glen Powell. So the casting choice here did not work for me. This film could have very much worked, but Powell, well, I appreciate him as an actor. I believe his charisma can go a long way to making everybody better around him. This was just not the right fit, and it's really a questionable decision. I've been thinking, especially since Twisters, are they trying? They're giving Glen Powell all the 90s and 80s era reboots. Are they thinking of him like the modern day answer to Sylvester Stallone or Arnold Schwarzenegger? Watching The Running Man, I'm beginning to think he might be our modern Tom Hanks. He's got a very nice flair for rom-coms and things like that, but I don't know if a hardcore action film like this is necessarily his bag, baby. Sorry, I was watching Austin Powers this week. It had to happen. And I think this struggle with Powell's persona really plays into a struggle with tone that the film has throughout. And this could also potentially be a question of watching this through 2025 eyes. This is a very well-studied, well-prepared, very effective case of world building that you see Edgar Wright doing behind the camera in this film. This is a savvy study of particularly mass media as we see it today, reality television, cable television at its grossest, grimiest, and most finely tuned. This taps into things we've heard about reality television for the last 30 years and gives it cocaine and puts a shiny, sparkly jacket on it. It's uncomfortable. It's not easy to watch, and with a movie-going public who's chronically watched a lot of news and is exhausted, it's not necessarily going to be the easiest. And this film, it wants to be bleak. And speaking with people who are more well-versed with the King's story, the roots in this story are incredibly bleak, are incredibly nihilistic. I got the feeling the movie didn't necessarily want to go that deep. The exact words that came to my mind were you could feel the studio notes all over this. This was particularly noticeable to me, and I'm going to stay very vague here to avoid spoilers, in an ending that didn't feel right. It felt rushed, it felt awkward, it felt pieced together. You could see the production notes going, well, should we maybe change that up? I would be fascinated, and I have not actually read up on this, so I cannot speak to what actually happened. But I would wonder if there was potentially another ending shot, and what resulted was a quick reshoot, or something was tweaked, or something was changed. Because this film, The Running Man doesn't want to commit. Is it nervous? Is it scared? I can't say for certain, but that's certainly how it felt. It knew its identity. It is aware of what it was. But I don't know if it necessarily wanted to accept that. Getting back to performances, I would not be doing my job if I didn't call out Coleman Domingo from the rooftops. He is a performer who I am very, very, very new to. I was not aware of really anything about him until I think it was 2 years ago. He hit the ground running with like The Color Purple, and he went from 0 to getting Oscar nominations for me. And now every time he comes out is just flawless. And as someone whose frame of reference to The Running Man is the Schwarzenegger film, if anyone could step in to the Richard Dawson role and absolutely hit it out of the metaphorical park, it is Coleman Domingo. This is such a sly performance. It's a winking and studied, sequined coat wearing. He's a game show host in every way, shape, and form here. And he steals scenes like a bandit every single time he's on. Of all of the struggles and all of the casting woes that I could potentially call out, None of this had anything to do with Coleman Domingo. Coleman Domingo continues to be a national treasure. And I will now be coming out for everything he does because I enjoy him immensely every time he's on screen. And the same here can be said for a Michael Cera supporting role that I knew nothing about. Michael Cera steps into this film as, the best way I can describe it is a lone gunman, kind of conspiracy theorist. And this is a character I fell in love with as soon as he hit the ground. And the more scenes he had and the more development and the more exposition, I would have rather this character have a spin-off because he was quirky and weird and delightful in a way that Michael Cera himself could be. And for the nerds of a feather, Michael Cera and Edgar Wright go back together a long time, back to Scott Pilgrim vs. the World in 2010. So it's definitely sweet to see these two come back together, working together, and it's such a perfect fit that it was definitely a high point of the movie for me. Ultimately, though, this is a big action film. I would have expected to see this come out in summer. It's big. It's bloody, it's brash, it's violent. And a lot of these struggles that I was feeling, I can completely understand that it's not going to bug others, especially if you're just looking for a popcorn film. I thought a lot of the effects work went off very well. I was not necessarily struggling with the computer work. I can be a big jerk when it comes to computer graphics not working well, watching fight scenes with people and going, oh, that's not how a fight actually looks. People have mass. I call that out when I see it, and I was never particularly bothered by that here. As a action film, I thought this was incredibly well done. It's a big dystopian future film with, as I said, some stellar world building. This is grimy and dirty. If you love a dystopian future action film, I'm sure there's going to be something for you to love here. I don't know if the pieces fit that well in the grand scheme of things, but if you can turn your brain off to that, it's definitely one to check out. The Running Man is going to be opening in theaters around the United States at least this weekend. So that is going to be November 14th. It is my hope to have more written thoughts coming your way on this one a little closer to release, hopefully around Friday, over on piercingcinema.com. Well, that really should bring me to a close here at Piercing Pop Culture. Thank you, as always, for listening. My name is Kim. You can find me across the social medias as well as updates on what's going on here. I spend most of my time over on Blue Sky and Instagram at kpierce624. But you can also find the podcast's companion Substack at nostalgiaqueen.substack.com, as well as my website at piercingcinema.com. Thank you so much for joining me here, and have a good one all.